Hi everyone. The third part of this lecture on population and resources is about genetically modified foods. There are many GM crops, mainly soybeans, corn, cotton, and canola. We review our present situation first. We shall discuss the safety issues of the GM foods, including food safety and environmental safety. There are many GM crops grown all over. They are mainly made as herbicide resistance or insecticide resistance, mostly grown in the US, Argentina, Canada, and China. This technological fix is so successful that now we have made 10 to 20 times more than 2 decades ago. For instance, herbicide or glyphosate tolerant or HT soybeans, corn, and even cotton. Cotton, of course, is not for food, but for other manufacturing processes or garment industry. BT or bacillus toxin resistant corn, also very common. BT or bacillus toxin is called crystal protein or cryprotein, which is an endotoxin. The action of this endotoxin is causing mid-gut paralysis in larvae ingested with the toxin, and when inside the gut, it is activated to become an active toxin. After a few days, the larvae died. Because pests can cause 30% of yield loss as larvae in plant stock with the corn borer. These photos show the insect-resistant and herbicide-resistant plants survived from the test. Traditional breeding method is slow, non-specific, gene mixing within species and hard to maintain broodstock. Genetic engineering is fast, highly specific, different techniques available, cross species possible, and one need to maintain broodstock for the farming industry. Despite we are using a lot of GM foods and the technique is mature, the general public does not like the idea. For example, GM tomato was made to knock down an enzyme controlling tomato to ripe with temperature and ethylene gas manually. However, the public does not like the idea, and the GM tomato was banned and later out of the business. The first question asked is, are GM foods safe as food? Here, we use the concept of substantial equivalence, a comparative technique recommended by many international agencies. This concept treats GM foods as regular foods, tests for composition or ingredients, nutritive values, except safety. Look, they are exactly the same. And we believe that we can just make a composition comparison with nutrients, natural toxicants, anti-nutrients, allergens, etc. Not a measurement of absolute safety, showing low less safe than its conventional counterpart. Though labeling should be needed. Another example is transgenic salmon, which was made 2 decades ago, but the public is fear of growth hormone. This transgenic fish grows much faster than its conventional counterpart, as you can see in this photo, as the transgenic fish is carrying a transgen with altered growth hormone GH, gene expression year-round. The growth-enhanced salmon, however, has no extra growth hormone, but even if it has, fish growth hormone does not work on human. We only eat the fish meat as protein source. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and Food and Drug Administration, FDA, approved this fish being sold in the market in 2013. The second question we have is, would they pose harm or threat to the environment? If you need more background to comprehend this topic, please go to these links with the School of Life Science e-learning or directly to YouTube. We have made 6 short videos years ago. There was major concern with transgenic fish as the public worried that transgenic fish release would affect mating success, since GMOs are macro-mutant as they grow bigger, but they have viability disadvantage since they were not selected in the furrow conditions. The viability disadvantage genes may be transferred to the same species, making its own species become extinct. They even sort of use a computer model to prove this hypothesis. However, this hypothesis does not make sense as they assume the GM fish disadvantage. So how could they spread the disadvantaged genes around? There are other questions posed. For instance, BT corn killed monarch butterfly. This was only a lab test and never found in the farm. BT cotton select diamondback moth. We can grow mixed culture with 10% non-GM to avoid such selection. Vegetarians do not eat animal genes, but transgenic plants with an animal genes are still plants. Finally, some GM foods may cause allergy. This is an allergy issue and food labeling could help. Would the transgene be transferred to other plants causing gene pollution? So far, there's no data showing gene or genetic pollution. In the US, there are guidelines available called DNA safety guidelines for release of GMOs concerning habitat and ecological impacts. But for gene pollution, concerns with horizontal gene transfer, is it really happening? Use GM papaya as an example. Like it or not, the homegrown papaya could be affected by ring spot virus, PRCV, and a GM papaya called sunup is made resistant to such virus. In Hong Kong, this papaya is everywhere. According to a study from AFCD, over 60% of papaya sold in the market is GM. They are produced by different companies, and we have been eating them over 10 years. For the in-class discussion, we would like to find out the pros and cons of GM tomato and would you eat GM tomato? How about transgenic salmon? Would you eat them? And is it now available? The fish made transgenic is not any monster made for bigger size. It just grows faster. The company Aqua Bounty used 20 years to bargain with government agency to get the approval in 2013. How about the pros and cons of GM food labeling? Do you think GM foods like this soya drink be labeled? What constraints do we have? On the contrary, this product is non-transgenic. I got labeled as non-transgenic. To conclude, in this lecture with 3 videos, we ask a simple question of human sustainability as related to resources. We examine the key concepts of population explosion and carrying capacity. We are indeed in a divided world between the poor and rich. We are actually trying to make a technological fix, aquaculture and agriculture, using pesticides, antibiotics, large-scale farming supplementing with other means, including GM foods. After all, high technology with urbanization and globalization are in place to help with keeping the huge population on Earth, despite this is a double-edged sword. I hope you enjoy watching these videos and find the discussion useful to understand more about population and resources. Goodbye.